Well, it's official. The Victorian government has officially lost the plot. Last Saturday, 10 boys were fined $1,600 each for riding their skateboards in a park. They breached COVID-19 restrictions. This Saturday, 30 to 50,000 people will march side by side, jowl to jowl, through the streets of Melbourne, and nobody will be fined for breaching social distancing rules. Go figure that one out. That's what the Police Commissioner Graham Ashton said when asked yesterday. Now, nobody begrudges people marching. Let's get that straight. I can think of much better things to do on a Saturday afternoon in Melbourne than brave the cold and march for a cause. But, I mean, let's be fair dinkum, they're entitled to it. Each to their own, as they say. What I found troubling, no, actually, I'll call this appalling, is that there are rules for some people in Victoria and rules for others. And it happens in other states as well. Throughout this pandemic, the biggest gripe heard from people is the lack of consistency around regulations and the lack of clarity and certainty on the easing of restrictions. I empathise with Victorians stuck with Dan Andrews. This guy is unquestionably the worst political leader of the modern era. He runs Victoria as some sort of fiefdom, hubris, arrogance, and that'll happen when you allow half your cabinet to run a rort like the red shirt scandal, and then you get back in with an increased majority. His behaviour during COVID has been extraordinary. No golf, no fishing, cafes and restaurants now being forced to fill out more paperwork than you see in the budget papers for tracing purposes, and that's fine, that's okay, that's important. Yet tens of thousands of people will march through the streets on Saturday and nobody gives a toss. If Andrews was consistent, he'd open the footy stadiums next week for the AFL matches, put 100,000 into the MCG. He'd let restaurants open without the distancing rules or the crowd limits. The sheer madness Victorians are entitled to ask the question of Andrews, if Black Lives Matter, as they surely should, surely if you get a second wave of COVID-19 cases after this Saturday's march, who will take responsibility for that? Those lives matter too.